As a modern model for the region, Morocco has been ranked recently the most safe country in Africa by Global Finance. Under the guidance of King Mohammed VI, the country's strategy to bring foreign investments into the country and simplifying the business opportunities has helped Morocco attract many global brands, which improved the lives of all Moroccans and brought employment and business opportunities to the country. We have met ARADEI Capital, an investment company specialized in modern retail and owner of many malls and shopping centers in Morocco, to discuss the retail evolution.
As one of the Moroccan key retail players in the country, how do you see the country's evolution for the past 15 to 20 years?
It's a good question. The country's retail landscape has changed significantly over the past couple of decades. I'd say we've had a few shifts of grounds in the area on a few levels. First of all, we're no longer dealing with as much, I would say, traditional retail, and there is a major shift into modern retail. And when I say modern retail, it's not only about the retail, the real estate infrastructure part of the retail, but also the retailers. We've had a number of franchisees that have entered, or a number of franchises that have entered the country through their franchisees. We've had a number of brands that have come in to establish operations directly in the country. And so that has significantly impacted as well the real estate side, because traditionally we had retail that invested in its own real estate, while with the arrival of these franchisors and these operators, the commercial real estate industry was born itself, I'd say, in the past 15 years. And as you probably know, not even in Europe, it's a very old industry. I mean, it started maybe back in the US, but it's interesting to see how that shifted very quickly in Morocco, and how we've had the birth of this new industry. When you look at some of the studies, Nielsen's and others, you'll see that it's still maybe, 80 to 85% traditional retail, especially when you look at the food retail, it's still very much traditional. So there is a major opportunity as modern retail gets critical size for it to be able to be more competitive pricing wise and to actually acquire a lot more market share. And that creates an interesting opportunity, because you look at the rest of the world and everyone is saying, hey, we're going overboard with retail and we're cutting back on development. But when you look at a country where modern retail has not yet penetrated very well, you still have a development opportunity in a world that is basically shutting down and going into more e-commerce and other aspects. So I'd say to sum it up, because that's the question we get most of the time, what's going to happen with the e-commerce? Are you going to get impacted? How are you going to get impacted? We probably, from a retail square meters per thousand capita, for example, we're probably 20 times what is available in Europe. We're probably 5 times where countries like Tunisia even are. And so we're far behind in terms of brick and mortar infrastructure for retail. And so I'd foresee that the same development we've seen in the last 10, 15 years is going to continue. And that's going to be on a couple of fronts, because we're not only talking about shopping centers or retail parks, we're talking about strip malls, community malls, little plazas, infrastructure of retail that's basically mixed with the new office infrastructure.
Entertainment as well.
Entertainment as well. But what's happening is also very interesting, because the country is going also into a shift of what the residential development and the suburbs are being created. And these suburbs are not being created at the same image of what the cities have been traditionally. Let me be very specific about what that means for retail. traditionally city urban development has been that retail is basically the ground floor of every building. And so you'd have high street retail development happening. But with the suburbs being born in most of these cities, these suburbs are created as pure residential developments, which then require new retail infrastructure to actually go with it. So
to
that
integrate.
Exactly. So that creates new opportunity for retail to come in.
Absolutely. Your shopping malls are in the heart of key Moroccan cities, and they are all over the country. And we can mention Tangiers, Fez, Marrakesh. This has a major impact on the local communities and direct jobs and the lives of many Moroccans, doesn't it?
Well, of course it does, and on many levels and aspects that we don't even see. I think today we're up to maybe 20 or 22 cities where we have assets. And so the advantage that we have is that we have assets in million population cities and 70,000 population cities. So we're the smaller and the bigger ones. And so we're able to assess the purchasing power in many of these cities, understand also the impact of our retail in there. As you know, we're backed up by our partnership with La Belle Vie, a listed company here, which is the sole franchisee or the exclusive franchisee of the Carrefour brand. And the advantage we have with the Carrefour brands is we have the Carrefour Market, Carrefour Gourmet, the Carrefour, the hypermarket, as well as Atacadão, which is the discount model. And so with these four, I'd say, different models, we're able to penetrate different assets, different neighborhoods. And in terms of impact, again, I go back to the figure of, well, how does it help to have product go through a modern retail infrastructure? Well, one of the key impacts is on the industry. You know that when the industry sells into the traditional market, they have absolutely no feedback of knowledge on when the product was consumed or where the product was consumed. While when the distributor goes back to a modern channel, they are able to trace the actual sale and consumption of their product, which gives them essential feedback in terms of industrial production. So industrial players have actually everything to gain from moving their distribution from the non-structured retail to the traditional to modern. So that, forget the impacts of jobs, forget the impacts of the fact that these jobs have, these are basic elements. I know we're stopped dealing with some of this stuff all over the world, but all declared employees, social security, benefits of pay, things like that. When you talk about these small communities, these small markets or small cities that we're in, these are very important. Health and safety measures, making sure that the product is logistically safe from A to Z, and the logistics infrastructure, exactly, whether from a cold chain product or from other health and safety aspects. And so I can't begin to tell you the list of impacts that you can see from the penetration of this modern retail into the cities. And we're constantly working on additional impacts. You know, we're working on our own ESG charts from the environmental impact, and everything that we know is becoming important, whether it's for the consumer, whether it's for the investor, and obviously for our environment plan as well, is becoming part of what the country has been introduced to the retail. So I'd say we're very proud of what we do there. In reality, for a developing nation where retail infrastructure is young, where commercial real estate in general is young, we've done a major leap in the past decade, and that's still continuing.
So if we are an international brand, and mainly the brands that comes from the Western side, we see a more influence of brands coming from the East, and a lot of brands, they would like as well to penetrate the local market. I mean, as a key player locally, what's your insight based on those brands and the actual brands that already came from either the Middle East or either from far Asia? What's the right way for them to do it, and how your structure, for example, today can support a brand that decides to come tomorrow to invest in Morocco?
Good question. One of the key, or I'd say there are two probably main hurdles to penetration of the market in Morocco. The first one is being able to achieve critical size very quickly. The development in retail, if it's done in an organic manner, may take several years to get to that volume critical size to be able to turn it into a positive and profitable P&L. Having a partner like us in 20 different cities can provide...
Accelerate.
Exactly, an acceleration of access where we say, okay, we're going to launch your product very quickly into most of the country and accelerate the development plan. Second one is the development of the operating partners and the local franchisees in the country that has been going on in the last 10, 15 years has now provided for very good operating infrastructure that any foreign partner can partner with, work with, whether through JVs or franchise programs, and that can now be done quickly. It would have been very difficult 10 years ago. Any brand looking at coming into the country 10 years ago would have struggled with the human resources aspect. While today you could find several good partners who can come in very quickly and share the knowledge that they've had on the logistics side to that partnership. One of the mistakes I've seen happen in the past for some of the brands, and I'm not saying maybe mistake is not the right word, but one of the challenges I've seen is that when they go through a master franchisee in one of the Middle East countries, for example, then Morocco, given that the culture is a little bit disconnected from the Middle East and more similar to European lifestyle shopping, European lifestyle demand for products and things like that, it gets caught up a little bit in that purchasing centers and the infrastructure and logistics that are happening in the Middle East. And so things as simple as, is it the right boxes of sizes of the same style or not that they should be shipping to Morocco becomes a little, well, that's what they're shipping to the Middle East, so Morocco's going to get what they're getting in the Middle East, which is not what the Moroccan consumer wants. And so from that perspective, my advice has always been for these brands to try to penetrate directly or at least exclude the Moroccan platform from the Middle East infrastructure, and especially maybe also try to use Moroccan platform as a position or a point of entry for Western French-speaking countries in Africa, which also have that same connection, the European connection, similar to Morocco. And from that perspective, even from a human resources perspective, even from a logistics perspective, it makes more sense to do it that way, in my view, than through the Middle East. But it is prime time to do that. And I know in the current world where we live, everybody's like, well, no, but yeah, brick and mortar, we're closing that. We're doing e-commerce. Well, let's not get started on why the logistics and numbers do not support the e-commerce expansion in these countries yet. These countries, including Morocco, are still far behind in the need for brick and mortar and brand penetration and brand equity in these countries before they can move to the e-commerce. So we're in a unique position. I think a lot of the brands who are closing down or that are closing down stores in Europe should be thinking about opening down in countries like ours. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Your company has been introduced recently as an IPO last December, and congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that's going to drive ARADEI Capital to move ahead with the future of retail in the country?
Thank you. It's I think we're a humble small player in the country, and by measure of our size, we're still not comparable to the larger, I would say, commercial real estate vehicles that you find in Europe. But the reality is the commercial real estate business is one that consumes a lot of capital. Whether you're doing retail or healthcare or logistics, or these are typically sizable investments and they require large balance sheets. And in the life of any real estate yield vehicle, at some point, you need to be able to achieve the size to be efficient and for your economics to fall together. And that size would not have been possible for us and wouldn't be possible for us if we don't actually float the company and if we don't actually IPO it and have capital market sources now of funding that are available to us. So for sure, that will accelerate our growth. Obviously, it's not the only reason why our growth will be accelerated. It's because there's a lot more demand in country for new, whether it's development or repositioning existing real estate. And so our pipeline is very strong. And that's the other thing that our shareholders have felt has given us the urgent power to go and for the IPO. Our IPO was mostly cash in. So it's mostly money for growth. And we've announced some large transactions already after the IPO, which means we pretty much spent everything that we already assembled in the IPO. So watch that space. We may come out soon again asking for more, more money to spend. But I think you're right. The real estate investment trust industry, or the REITs industry, is starting. REIT legislation just came out in country a couple of years ago. So this is the time when we are expecting a lot of growth. A lot of sale and leasebacks as well. A lot of people are holding real estate on their books and balance sheet today are finding the benefit of selling and separating the operating company from the real estate. And so we will definitely benefit from that.